Я в стойке стал, я думал, он будет идти вперед. Ну, как видите, я ранее тоже говорил, против со мной выходят, и мне приходится охотиться, просто не идут на бой.
The MMA world is still recovering from UFC Abu Dhabi, but the aftermath is more chaotic than the event itself. Magomed Ankalaev secured a fifth-round stoppage over Bogdan Guskov, but the crowd booed, the critics piled on, and now everyone is asking the same question. Does a boring win deserve a title shot? Carlos Ulberg, the reigning light heavyweight champion, was watching cageaside. His response was measured but telling. Meanwhile, Paulo Costa is calling himself the killer of Russians and demanding an interim title fight. And Ankalaev, tired of the disrespect, is ready to shut him up. The division is in chaos. The champion is injured, the contenders are circling, and the UFC is scrambling to figure out what comes next. This is the story of a win that felt like a loss, and a division that desperately needs saving. The main event of UFC Abu Dhabi was supposed to be a statement. Magomed Ankalaev, the former light heavyweight champion, was returning to the octagon to remind everyone why he deserves another shot at the belt. His opponent, Bogdan Guskov, was a dangerous contender looking to make a name for himself. The stakes were clear. A win for Ankalaev would solidify his position as the next challenger for champion Carlos Ulberg. What the fans got instead was a 5-round slog that had the Etihad Arena crowd booing and fighters calling for the division to be saved. The opening frame set the tone for everything that followed. Very little action, cautious circling, feints without follow-through. The second round was largely uneventful aside from Ankalaev securing a clinch and landing a few knees. The lack of output continued into the third, prompting the restless Abu Dhabi crowd to loudly voice their frustration and shower both men with boos as they returned to their corners. This wasn't the Ankalaev who had dominated the division. This was a fighter who looked hesitant, unwilling to engage, content to win on points rather than make a statement. The championship rounds finally brought some urgency. Ankalaev shifted gears in the fourth, immediately taking Guskov to the mat. He worked his way to full mount before settling into half guard, eventually threatening with a rear-naked choke that Guskov managed to defend. It was the first time the fight had any real drama. But even then, the action was sporadic. Guskov, who landed just 45 strikes throughout the entire fight, nearly pulled off a miracle head-and-arm choke early in the fifth round. Ankalaev calmly escaped the sudden submission threat and eventually took Guskov's back. Despite a brief reversal from Guskov in a desperate scramble, Ankalaev regained top position and unleashed a vicious barrage of blows to force the stoppage at 2:41 of the fifth round. The victory gave Ankalaev his 13th UFC win, the most among active light heavyweights. On paper, it was a statement. In reality, it was a nightmare. The crowd booed. The analysts struggled to find positive things to say, and the fighters who were watching cageside had opinions that were anything but kind. Derek Brunson, who fought 21 times in the UFC over 11 years before moving to the PFL, summed up the sentiment perfectly. The light heavyweight division needs some life. His assessment was blunt. The division was in trouble if this was the best it had to offer. The most brutal assessment came from Paulo Costa. The Brazilian, who calls himself a specialist in fighting Russians after back-to-back wins over Roman Kopylov and Azamat Murzakanov, wasted no time in delivering his verdict. With God's help, I will save this division from boredom and monotony, Costa wrote. He had previously expressed interest in fighting Ankalaev for an interim title, while champion Carlos Ulberg recovers from a torn ACL. His comments were a direct shot at Ankalaev's performance, and they resonated with fans who were already frustrated. Watching the grueling affair cageaside was reigning UFC light heavyweight champion Carlos Ulberg, who is currently sidelined while recovering from a torn ACL. He is targeting an early 2027 return. Ulberg was asked about the fight and responded with measured confidence. Congrats to Ankalaev. I saw what I needed to see and I'll do everything that I need to do to make sure I get back in there. The division is nothing short of dominant at this moment. I'll leave it at that. His assessment was diplomatic but clear. Ankalaev's performance had not intimidated him. If anything, it had given him confidence. Daniel Cormier, the former champion and current commentator, also weighed in on the situation. Ankalaev getting that finish might have legitimately gotten him another opportunity to fight for the UFC championship against the new champion Carlos Ulberg when he comes back, Cormier said. But it was insanely important for Ankalaev to get a finish tonight, and he did that in the fifth round. So with that, would Ankalaev really want to sit on the sidelines until the end of the year and wait for Carlos Ulberg? We will see. The answer to that question became clear when Ankalaev spoke after the fight. He didn't just want to wait, he wanted to stay active, and he had a specific opponent in mind. The tension between Magomed Ankalaev and Paulo Costa had been building for weeks. Costa had been running his mouth, calling Ankalaev's performance boring and pathetic, positioning himself as the savior of the light heavyweight division. Ankalaev had been quiet, focused on his fight, but after the final bell rang in Abu Dhabi, he had heard enough. During the post-fight press conference, Ankalaev addressed Costa directly. His words were measured but cutting. "I'm already the #1 contender," Ankalaev said. "But as we know in this division right now, our champion is hurt, and we don't know when he's going to come back. So, if he's going to take a long time to come back, I would like to stay active. And I believe I saw something that Paulo Costa wrote something in my direction, but I'm not sure what he was trying to say. But if the champion will be out for some time, maybe we can have a good fight with Costa, unless he's going to be running away." The words were a direct challenge, a dismissal of Costa's trash talk, and a warning that if Costa wanted to step up, Ankalaev would be ready. But Ankalaev didn't stop there. He also responded to Alex Pereira, who had previously mocked him after their 2 fights. Pereira had joked about Ankalaev's silence following their second bout, posting a photo of Ankalaev with the caption, "What are you still alive?" Ankalaev's response was sharp and confrontational. "If he wants to come down here, and if he wants to take on this fight, I'm sure the UFC would also be very happy to make that fight happen," Ankalaev said. Then he added a direct message to Pereira on social media. "You talk a lot, but we both know you never want to fight me. If you're a real man, accept the fight and let's do it. Otherwise, keep your mouth shut. An interim title is fine with me too, no problem." The reaction from the MMA community was immediate. Ankalaev had been quiet for so long that fans had forgotten he could talk. But the words were backed by a performance that, while boring, was dominant. The question now was whether the UFC would make the fight. Ankalaev versus Costa for an interim title while Ulberg recovers. It would be a massive fight. It would sell pay-per-views. And it would give the light heavyweight division the life it desperately needed. Costa, of course, has been making noise about a title fight for months. His knockout of Azamat Murzakanov at UFC 327 had vaulted him into the conversation. He had been calling out everyone in the division, including Ulberg, Ankalaev, and even Pereira. Now, he had an answer. Ankalaev wanted the fight, and if Costa was serious about saving the division, he would accept. But there was another player in the mix. Carlos Ulberg, the injured champion, had been watching all of this unfold from the sidelines. He had made it clear that he would return in early 2027, and that he would fight whoever earned the shot. But he also had ideas about how the division should play out while he was gone. In an Instagram story, Ulberg laid out his vision. "Ank versus Yuri," he wrote. "Give them both a full camp. It's a fight the division deserves, and stylistically, it's one the fans would love to see. Costa versus Roundtree, that's the wild card. High risk, high reward. Someone's leaving with serious momentum. By the time the dust settles, I'll be ready. Whoever earns it, see you in 2027. God is great." Ulberg's message was clear. He wasn't afraid of anyone. He was willing to fight the winner of whatever matchup the UFC put together. But he was also smart enough to know that the division needed compelling fights while he was gone. Ankalaev versus Costa. Yuri Roundtree versus someone else. 2 fights that would build contenders and create buzz. It was a plan that made sense. The question was whether the UFC would follow it. The light heavyweight division is in a strange place. The champion is injured. The #1 contender just won a fight that nobody enjoyed. The most vocal contender is a middleweight who has won 2 fights at 205 pounds. And the former champion is chasing a 3rd belt at heavyweight. It's chaos. But chaos in the UFC often leads to the most compelling matchups. While Ankalaev was calling out Costa and the MMA community was debating the merits of his performance, the man who holds the light heavyweight belt was watching from cageaside. Carlos Ulberg, the reigning champion, had a front row seat to the chaos, and he had a plan. The champion, who is currently recovering from a torn ACL suffered during his title-winning knockout of Jiří Procházka at UFC 327, is targeting an early 2027 return. And in his view, none of the current contenders have done enough to secure an automatic title shot, so he put on his matchmaker hat. Ulberg took to social media the day after the Abu Dhabi event and laid out a solution that sent shockwaves through the division. His pitch was simple, a 4-man tournament to determine the next challenger. Ankalaev versus Jiří, Ulberg wrote, give them both a full camp. It's a fight the division deserves, and stylistically it's one the fans would love to see. Costa versus Roundtree, that's the wild card. High risk, high reward. Someone's leaving with serious momentum. By the time the dust settles, I'll be ready. Whoever earns it. See you in 2027. The proposed maps made immediate sense. Ankalaev versus Procházka pits the most credentialed grappling-first contender against one of the most explosive strikers the division has produced. The fight has real analytical merit. A full camp on both sides could produce the kind of action the division has genuinely lacked. Procházka hasn't fought since losing to Ulberg in April. Prior to that knockout loss, he was on a 2-fight winning streak with stoppages over Jamahal Hill and Khalil Roundtree Jr. The two have also traded barbs through social media and interviews, adding a layer of personal animosity to an already intriguing matchup. The second fight Ulberg proposed, Costa vs. Roundtree, is the wild card. Roundtree was actually scheduled to face Ankalaev in Abu Dhabi, but was forced out with an injury, leading to Guskov stepping in. He recently returned to competition after a suspension and is looking to climb back into the title picture. Costa, meanwhile, is the division's most vocal contender, the man who calls himself the killer of Russians. Putting those two together is exactly the kind of high-risk, high-reward matchup that either produces a highlight reel finish or a 5-round war. Neither man has the technical foundation to control the pace. Both have the power to end a fight in an exchange. The winner of that fight would leave with serious momentum, exactly what Ulberg says he wants. But Ulberg's proposal isn't just about matchmaking. It's a power play. By laying out a bracket, Ulberg is sending a message to the UFC. He doesn't want an interim title fight while he recovers. He wants to unify the belts against a single undisputed challenger. No placeholder belt, no interim complications. One tournament, one obvious title challenger at the end of it. It's a business argument buried in his position. If the winners of 2 fights produce one clear challenger, the UFC gets a clean unification fight when Ulberg returns. There are no messy interim belt politics to deal with. The champion, who tore his ACL mid-fight and still finished Prochaska, is showing a level of confidence that borders on arrogance. He's not afraid of any of these fighters. He's not worried about who emerges. He just wants someone to emerge so he can beat them. The question, of course, is whether the UFC will follow the champion's blueprint. Champions have historically had limited say in matchmaking beyond who they are unwilling to fight. Ulberg volunteering an entire bracket publicly is unusual. Champions who feel secure tend to say some version of whoever they give me. Ulberg naming 4 fighters and a running order suggests he has watched the same division everyone else has and would rather set the terms than inherit them. It also suggests that he knows exactly what he wants the title picture to look like when he returns. Dana White has publicly indicated the interim option is live. Speaking recently, the UFC CEO said the possibility of an interim title in Ulberg's absence is very much in play. He did not commit to a booking or a timeline. He also did not commit to Ulberg's tournament proposal. White has historically been open to interim titles when a champion is out more than 9 months. Ulberg's projected window brushes right up against that threshold. A torn ACL typically sidelines athletes in contact sports for 9 to 12 months. Ulberg's stated return window is genuine. But White's comments suggest the UFC is leaning toward the interim option, a possibility Ankalaev has already endorsed. The tension is now clear. Ulberg wants no interim. Ankalaev wants an interim. Both have a matchmaking case. Both have their reasons. And the promotion is caught in the middle, trying to figure out what's best for business. The light heavyweight division is in a strange place. The champion is injured. The #1 contender just won a fight that nobody enjoyed. The most vocal contender is a middleweight who has won 2 fights at 205 pounds. And the former champion is chasing a 3rd belt at heavyweight. It's chaos. But chaos in the UFC often leads to the most compelling matchups. The question is whether the UFC will follow Ulberg's vision, or whether they'll do what they always do. Book the biggest money fight possible. While the light heavyweight division was drowning in uncertainty, the middleweight division was quietly tearing itself apart. Khamzat Chimaev, the undefeated Chechen Wolf, has been waiting patiently for his rematch with Sean Strickland. He has been training relentlessly. He has been calling out Strickland at every opportunity. And now he has issued an ultimatum. Chimaev wants Strickland next. Not Imavov, not Duplessis, Strickland. And he is willing to wait as long as it takes. Khamzat Chimaev's pursuit of Sean Strickland has become the defining storyline of the middleweight division. The first fight between them was a war, a 5-round thriller that had fans debating the outcome for weeks. It ended with Strickland on top, but only just. Chimaev believes he won. Strickland believes he won, and the MMA community is divided. Now, with Duplessis calling for a 3rd fight with Strickland, Imavov demanding a title shot, and Strickland himself seemingly open to anyone, Chimaev's ultimatum has thrown a wrench into the division's plans. Chimaev was in Abu Dhabi recently, where he spoke with the media about his upcoming bout. His message was clear and unwavering. Nothing has changed. Nothing's changed. We're training, waiting for Strickland to come out of his house. It doesn't matter to me. Whenever they give me a fight, that's when I'll return. I'm always in the gym, even today. The Chechen fighter is not interested in anyone else. He has one target, and he is willing to sit out as long as necessary to get it. Strickland has been vocal about his willingness to fight anyone. But Chimaev's persistence has created a standoff that the UFC cannot ignore. Chimaev also revealed something else. He has been training with a new system, a new coach focused on strength and conditioning. But he downplayed the idea that he has completely changed his approach. Different places I have different coaches. When I'm in LA, Coach Cal is here. When I'm in Dubai, there are other coaches. So both there and here for me. We are training. We are waiting. We are waiting for Strickland. The implication is clear. Chimaev is ready. He is prepared. He is just waiting for the UFC to make the fight. The middleweight division is a logjam. Strickland is the most wanted man in the division, but he can only fight one person at a time. The UFC has a difficult decision to make. Do they give Chimaev what he wants? Do they reward Imavov for his patience? Do they give Du Plessis the trilogy fight he believes he deserves? The answer will determine the direction of the division for the next 12 months. And it will also determine whether Chimaev continues to wait, or whether he eventually moves on to other things. Meanwhile, a completely different type of drama was unfolding. Some UFC fighters, including Strickland, went off on Gene Silva after he posted photos online of himself visiting Israel and taking pictures with soldiers. Strickland, Bilal Muhammad, and others took shots at Silva under his Instagram post. Strickland then went on X and posted, "How much money would it take for you to kiss the wall in Israel?" Honestly, I haven't mentally worked through this thought, but when I see Americans kiss the wall, it makes my skin crawl. Fighters, politicians, all of them. It bothers me deep in my core. No idea why. It feels very wrong though. Following all of the backlash, Silva reacted on X by writing, "I'm here 100% because of the fight of the Fighting Nerds fighter, Ella, who's one of my main sparring partners. Nobody could make it, and this fight could take him to the Contender Series. He shows for all my fights. I knew it was going to be controversial, but I chose not to ditch my brother of many years. I know the hate that's already going around with me about this, but I didn't want to abandon my partner of years in one of the most important fights of his life because of hate." The controversy highlights the growing divide between fighters' personal beliefs and their professional lives. Silva's decision to support his teammate in Israel has drawn criticism from fighters and fans alike. Strickland's reaction reflects a broader sentiment among some fighters that athletes should stay out of political controversies. But Silva's explanation suggests that his decision was not political, it was personal. He was supporting a friend. The fallout from the controversy is still unfolding. But the incident has added another layer of tension to an already volatile UFC landscape. The pieces are moving, the narratives are colliding, and the light heavyweight division is standing at a crossroads that will define its future. Magomed Ankalaev has his win, but nobody is celebrating. Paulo Costa wants to save the division from boredom and monotony. Carlos Ulberg has proposed a 4-man tournament. And Khamzat Chimaev is waiting in the wings, demanding Strickland. The chaos is real, the stakes are high. And the question everyone is asking is simple. Who will emerge from the chaos and claim the title? Let's start with Ankalaev. He is the #1 contender. He has the most wins in the division. He just finished a dangerous opponent, and he is willing to fight anyone, but his performance left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. The fans booed, the critics piled on. And now, his path to the title is uncertain. The UFC could give him an interim title shot against Paulo Costa. They could wait for Ulberg to return. They could book him against Jiri Prochaska in a fight that would settle the debate once and for all. The options are endless. The decision is complicated. Then there's Costa, the loudest voice in the division, the man who calls himself the killer of Russians. He has won 2 fights at light heavyweight. He has a fan-friendly style. He sells tickets. He talks trash. And he is the perfect villain for a division that desperately needs one. The UFC could book him against Ankalaev for an interim title. They could book him against Roundtree in a wild-card matchup. They could even book him against Ulberg when the champion returns. The possibilities are exciting. And then there's Chimaev, the elephant in the middleweight room. He is waiting for Strickland. He is willing to wait as long as it takes. His ultimatum has created a logjam that the UFC cannot ignore. The division is stalled. Strickland's next opponent is uncertain. The champion status is uncertain. And Chimaev's patience is uncertain. The answer to that question will determine the direction of the division. Will the UFC give Chimaev what he wants? Will they move on to other options? Or will they wait for the situation to resolve itself? Meanwhile, the UFC Paris card is on the horizon. A French superstar making his debut. A British striker fighting for his future. And a crowd ready to explode. The energy is shifting, the focus is moving, and the chaos of Abu Dhabi is being replaced by the excitement of Paris. The lesson from all of this is simple. The UFC is a machine. It never stops, it never slows down, and it never stays the same. The chaos that consumed the light heavyweight division in Abu Dhabi will be forgotten the moment the first bell rings in Paris. But the impact of that chaos will linger. The fighters who emerged from it, the narratives that defined it, the questions that remain unanswered, those are the things that will shape the division for years to come. And the division is ready for whoever emerges. Ankalaev has a win, Costa has a voice, Ulberg has a plan, Chimaev has an ultimatum. And the fans have a question: who will emerge from the chaos and claim the title? The answer is coming. The cage door is closing. And once it does, there is no going back. The countdown to UFC 330 is on. The chaos is building, and the MMA world is watching to see who will emerge from the chaos. The future of the division is uncertain. The stakes are high, and the fighters are ready. The question is whether the UFC will make the right decisions to ensure the division's survival. The answer to that question will determine everything. The chaos is real. The drama is real, and the truth is far more shocking than fiction. The cage door is closing, and once it does, there is no going back.